Welcome to the A Taste of the Mediterranean Teacher Training Program. A Taste of the Mediterranean was developed by Oldways. Oldways is a nonprofit dedicated to improving public health by inspiring individuals and organizations to embrace the healthy, sustainable joys of the old ways of eating. Heritage-based diets high in taste, nourishment, sustainability, and joy. Since 1990, we've helped people live healthier, happier lives by offering educational programs, resources, and recipes based on shared cultural food traditions from around the world. It's a mission we take great joy in, one with proven nutritional and emotional benefits. A Taste of the Mediterranean celebrates the food traditions of a wide multitude of cultures surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, practicing cultural competence to honor diversity means understanding the core needs of your target audience and designing services and materials to meet those needs strategically. Here are a few important cultural competence skill areas to keep in mind when you're teaching the class. First, structure classes as a constant cultural exchange. Continually invite students to share their personal experiences, perspectives, and cultural traditions surrounding the foods and topics covered in A Taste of the Mediterranean. Learning from others is how we grow as individuals. Value diversity. Welcome and respect differences. Differences of opinion, backgrounds and customs, communication styles, traditions, and values for dynamic group learning. Be culturally self-aware. Understand that our own culture, the sum of our individual experiences, knowledge, skills, beliefs, values, and interests, shapes our sense of who we are and where we fit into our family, school, community, and society. Always use inclusive language. Use inclusive we language rather than isolating you terms. Use language that reflects what people call themselves. Take time to find out what words your participants use for their cultural identities and experiences rather than making assumptions. Learn about students' different cultural roots. On the first day of class, Lesson 1 invites students to share their cultural and geographical backgrounds, food memories, health histories, and more. Take the time to learn about your students' various backgrounds, celebrate them, and pull from them throughout the program. Because America is a melting pot and one size doesn't fit all, Oldways has worked with subject matter experts to develop heritage diet pyramids over the years, taking a broad approach to celebrate different regions and restore an often unsung cultural ownership of healthy eating to various communities. These pyramids guide our educational resources and programs. Although the program we're talking about today focuses on the Mediterranean diet, it's important to remember that there are many different cultural food traditions linked with good health and well-being. And I know many of you instructors are already familiar with a taste of African heritage, a taste of Latin American heritage, and a children's taste of African heritage, which are some existing Old Ways cooking and nutrition curricula. So thanks to your feedback, we're really excited to bring a taste of the Mediterranean to you as another option which, like its sister programs, is also a 6-week cooking and nutrition curriculum. Food traditions vary widely throughout the world, yet often have much in common and provide opportunities for deeper connection, not only to our heritage, but also to one another. Emerging research affirms the health benefits of many traditional diets, inspired by the rich culinary histories of cuisines around the globe and their shared plant-forward pattern. I really like this animated graphic because it evokes a sense of connection across diverse foods and flavors. While there are decades of epidemiological and clinical research supporting the health benefits of a Mediterranean diet, it would be a mistake to interpret these findings as evidence that the Mediterranean diet alone is the singular healthy eating pattern to prevent disease, or that one cultural diet is healthier than another. Understanding your students' daily experiences will help you to teach them and reach them in a more conscious, authentic, and effective way. So when you're teaching the program, definitely be mindful of your audience's different income levels by keeping cost in mind for your ingredient purchases. Be mindful of your audience's local access to healthy foods in their neighborhoods. Help them identify the best produce selections in their neighborhoods or suggest substitutions if particular ingredients aren't readily available. You should also keep in mind their transportation access, helping students plan their weekly grocery shopping routine in a way that they can manage. And finally, keeping in mind your audience's kitchen equipment. What do they have and what do they need? Like all of Oldways cooking and nutrition curricula, all of the recipes in A Taste of the Mediterranean can be made on hot plate. No ovens are required. And we list out all of the tools like cutting boards and things like that in the curriculum. There's often a disconnect between medical definitions of overweight and obesity and cultural definitions of desired body size. To best encourage lifelong healthy habits in the face of different cultural beauty norms, take the focus away from weight, body size, and fatness. Promote healthy eating for well-being rather than focusing solely on weight loss or physical appearance. It's important to respect the diversity of body weights and shapes around you and avoid body shaming. So, I've got some quiz questions sprinkled in throughout this training program. So, first of all, here's our first question. Which of the following factors are important to understand and acknowledge when teaching and counseling your participants? Participants' income levels, food access in participants' neighborhood, what basic kitchen equipment they might not have access to, transportation issues and solutions, sharing which local grocery stores and farmers markets have the best produce selection, or all of the above. So I'll give you just a few seconds to think of it. And of course, the answer is all of these above. These are all really important things to keep in mind. Now we're going to dive into the Mediterranean diet to give you some background information about the diet to help get you prepared for the class. The Mediterranean diet was a key focus of our work at Oldways since the early days of our organization more than 30 years ago. Um, Oldways, our nonprofit nutrition education organization, began in the 1990s focused on the Mediterranean diet. If you recall, at that time, that was a period where the trend was towards lots of low fat and fat-free foods, which weren't necessarily the healthiest options on supermarket shelves. So Oldways teamed up with the Harvard School of Public Health to really document and characterize the key elements of the Mediterranean diet. So we gathered a group of scientists, including Walter Willett and Demetrios Trikopoulos from the Harvard School of Public Health, Antonia Trikopoulou from the University of Athens, and many others, including Ansel Keys, who by many is known as the father of the Mediterranean diet, and reaching consensus on the key elements of the Mediterranean diet. This group of scientists and Oldways developed the first Mediterranean diet pyramid as a way of communicating to people what the Mediterranean diet is all about and, which foods we're talking about when we use that term. The World Health Organization signed on to the Mediterranean diet pyramid the following year. So, what is the Mediterranean diet? Although our first window into the Mediterranean diet began with the Greek island of Crete, the Mediterranean diet as we know it today represents the broader pattern of eating found throughout the Mediterranean region, including Cyprus, Spain, Greece, Italy, Portugal, Turkey, Israel, Lebanon, and North Africa. Today, approximately 27 countries surround the Mediterranean Sea with similar climates and food patterns. While each of these regions has their own signature dishes, they are all based on a similar food pattern of legumes or beans, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, olive oil as the primary cooking oil, nuts, herbs, spices, and fish. So there's kind of three regions of the Mediterranean diet, or three regions of the Mediterranean that we focus on in this program. One is Southern Europe. So in Southern Europe, you'll find um, a lot of meals include ingredients from what is called the Mediterranean Trinity. So olives, wheat, and grapes. Traditional dishes you see might include healthy pasta meals, lentil soup, um, salad niçoise, all kinds of good stuff. And we get to make some of these in the program. The next region that is a part of the Mediterranean diet is North Africa. This cuisine is shaped by the Berbers and Egyptians, with some influences from Spanish and Portuguese explorers, as well as other Arab nations. So ingredients might include things like couscous, dates, of course, olive oil, like everywhere around the Mediterranean. Dishes are very spice forward. Um, and yeah, it's a really flavorful element of the cuisine. And the final kind of region of the Mediterranean that we focus on when we talk about the Mediterranean diet is that Eastern Mediterranean part. So near like Greece and Turkey in that area. Um, there are a lot of really fragrant spices in this style of cooking, as well as like sour flavors. Think a lot of like lemon juice and the sumac, things like that. And some dishes that you might be familiar with that trace their roots to this region include things like hummus. The Mediterranean diet features plant foods like vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, and olive oil at every meal, as you can see in the Mediterranean diet pyramid here. It also contains moderate amounts of seafood and traditionally produced cheeses and yogurts. One of the reasons that the Mediterranean diet has stood the test of time is that it is as delicious as it is nutritious, proving that good taste and good health go hand in hand. There are so many health benefits, um, documented from the Mediterranean diet that it would be difficult to highlight them all, but just to give you a little overview. For over half a century, scientists have been documenting both the long-term and short-term health benefits of following a Mediterranean diet. Landmark randomized studies have found that people who follow a Mediterranean diet have a 30% lower risk of heart disease, and subsequent studies have demonstrated that the Mediterranean diet's impact on chronic disease prevention, healthy aging, healthy pregnancies, brain health, and much more. Again, when we talk about the Mediterranean diet, we're talking about the traditional diet depicted in the Mediterranean diet pyramid. That includes lots of healthy plant-based foods, olive oil, and home-cooked meals. So, if you go on vacation in the Mediterranean, your meal might look a little different, as our, globe becomes more interconnected and as Western diets, make their way across borders. Unfortunately, as people around the world have abandoned their traditional diets in favor of a Western style diet with fast foods and ultra-processed foods, diet-related disease increases. And if you'd like to learn more about some of the health benefits of a Mediterranean diet, you can visit our website, oldwayspt.org, and we have a whole database of health studies that we update as new research becomes available. Each lesson in A Taste of the Mediterranean begins with a cultural discussion. Here are some ideas to help stimulate conversation, connections, and understanding among your participants. Storytelling is a great tool. Sharing about your own culture can help others feel comfortable sharing about theirs. Share food stories specific to your cultural heritage, whether or not you're from the Mediterranean or somewhere completely opposite on the globe. And then invite students to do the same. What foods or food preparations are similar? What food traditions have been maintained and how? Share about different travel experiences and foods eaten abroad or in different parts of the US. Share about childhood foods and how personal diets have changed. To help students make connections, share what you know is culturally similar and what is different across the Mediterranean. To help students increase their understanding, talk about the class's misconceptions of the Mediterranean. Talk about what sharing and learning about the Mediterranean can do for our understanding of the cultures from that region. Okay, pop quiz time. Which of the following factors are important to understand and acknowledge when teaching and counseling your participant? Excuse me. Uh, Shifts from traditional to modern lifestyle patterns include increases in all of the following except ultra-processed foods, sodium, physical activity, or refined sugar. So shifts from traditional to modern lifestyle patterns include increases in all of these things except physical activity. As we have shifted to a more modern lifestyle, unfortunately, a lot of us have become more sedentary. Which of these statements describes the Mediterranean diet? The Mediterranean diet is a low carb diet. The Mediterranean diet is a low fat diet. The Mediterranean diet is based on a foundation of healthful plant foods. Wine is a required part of the Mediterranean diet, or the Mediterranean diet is calorie restrictive. Which of these do you think best describes the Mediterranean diet? The answer is that it is based on a foundation of healthful plant foods. And we can see that when we look at the image of the Mediterranean diet pyramid, which appears in this training video and also throughout the teacher's curriculum. It is not low fat. There's lots of olive oil, and it's not low carb, like we talk about whole grains and fruits and legumes and all kinds of healthy plant foods that do contain carbohydrates. Which of these countries are not a part of the Mediterranean? Spain, Denmark, Tunisia, Turkey, or Greece? And the answer is Denmark. So the other countries listed are all countries that are a part of the Mediterranean region, but not Denmark. All right, so now I'm going to walk you through lesson by lesson. Similar to its sister programs like Taste of African Heritage, A Taste of the Mediterranean is a 6-week cooking and nutrition curriculum. So there's 6 lessons, each focused on a different theme. The first lesson is about the Mediterranean diet in general and healthy fats. So before starting each lesson, it's important to read through the chapter in advance to familiarize yourself with the material. In the first lesson, we start by walking participants through the pyramid, section by section, explaining the foods and nutritional recommendations. We also discuss the regions that make up the Mediterranean and discuss some of the key culinary characteristics and dishes found in each region. Encourage your participants to talk about their experiences or lack of experiences with these cuisines. Because olive oil and nuts are a key component of the Mediterranean diet, we also spend time in lesson 1 learning about these heart-healthy sources of fat and encourage participants to get comfortable adding these ingredients to their meals. The first recipe we learned to make is a Mediterranean couscous salad. We like to make ours with whole wheat couscous. This great recipe doesn't require any heat or cooking, and it comes to us by way of Catherine Katz, who was born in North Africa, where couscous is a culinary staple. Here in Boston, we've had some success finding whole wheat couscous at places like Wegmans and Trader Joe's, but it can also be ordered online if you're having trouble finding it locally. Eifer's Kassir is the next recipe that we make in this chapter. Kassir, this is a traditional bulgur wheat recipe created by Turkish food writer Ayfer Ünsal and adapted by Olyana chef Anna Sortun for the 2012 Oldways culinary tour in Gaziantep and Istanbul. Anna first tasted this style of kasir when Eifer organized a potluck lunch in 1996 with almost 20 home cooks from Gaziantep. And all these decades later, it is still a staff favorite. And these are great examples of how olive oil is used in different recipes, as well as things like nuts and seeds. And then finally, the basic EVOO or extra virgin olive oil. Vinaigrette is a simple salad dressing that's just like a great recipe for students to keep in their back pockets. Um, Making your own salad dressing is super easy. It's not as intimidating as it seems. So we really try and demystify that in the program um, in this chapter. So here are some tips for teaching lesson one. Read through the Health Through Heritage pledge out loud together and encourage students to connect on Facebook for even more peer support. Engage your students in discussions about their cultural ancestries, personal food traditions, and cooking experience, family health, food experiences while traveling, and visits to Mediterranean restaurants in the US. And finally, pull from your experience to relay the information. The second lesson focuses on fruits, vegetables, and herbs, which are key components of the Mediterranean diet. One of the key messages in this lesson is about how herbs and citrus are great ways to add flavor to dishes without relying on too much sodium. So these are the recipes that are featured in chapter 2 or lesson 2. Uh, Pantelleria is a small island between Sicily and Tunisia, which is famous for its capers. Um, so that's kind of where the potato salad with capers comes in. This Pantascan salad is similar to a Greek salad, but with potatoes instead of feta, making it entirely plant-based. Citrus fruits are significant throughout much of the Mediterranean, which is why we also included a Sicilian-inspired citrus fennel and red onion salad. And our final dish takes us to the Catalan region of Spain, where we sample sweet and savory side dish of spinach with raisins. Our version uses almonds in place of the more traditional pine nuts, as well as frozen spinach rather than fresh, for an affordable, accessible, easy to recreate side dish. When you're teaching this lesson, bring various Mediterranean diet fruits, vegetables, and or herbs to let students see and feel them. Use the pyramid to review all of the different vegetables already covered so far in the program, paired with spices, mixed with whole grains, etc., and to discuss traditional healthy lifestyle practices. And of course, pull from your experiences to relay information. The next lesson, the third lesson, is focused on whole grains. In this lesson, we'll cover the definition and parts of a whole grain, health and nutritional benefits of whole grains, how to identify whole grains using the whole grain stamp, whole grains and their uses in Mediterranean cooking. And we also have a whole grain trivia game that you can play with your students. As far as the recipes we make, whole wheat pasta is one of the most affordable and easy to find whole grains. The penne with pesto and peas is made with a whole wheat penne that's pretty easy to find at most major supermarkets. And if the penne shape is not available, you can really make this with any whole grain pasta shape. The pesto can be made in a food processor or blender, depending on what equipment you have. And traditionally, it could even be made with like a mortar and pestle. Our other whole grain recipe is tabbouleh, which is like this classic Lebanese salad made with bulgur wheat. And for those of you who aren't familiar with bulgur wheat, bulgur grains are whole wheat kernels that have been cracked into smaller pieces and pre-boiled and dried so that they cook super fast in under 10 minutes. When you're teaching lesson 3, many students are surprised to learn that so many whole grains have cultural ties to the Mediterranean. So really emphasize this connection in your class when talking about each grain. Tell your students where you purchased your whole grains so that they can easily find them too. If you have trouble finding any of the whole grains for the recipes, consider more accessible whole grains as substitutes. Bring in examples of different whole grains and products with the whole grain stamp on their packaging so that your students can see what that looks like. And as always, pull from your experiences to relay information. The next lesson focuses on beans, peas, lentils, and chickpeas. Like many traditional cultures, plant-based proteins were a staple source of nutrition because they were affordable and accessible and easy to store dried for year-round enjoyment. Recipes that we'll be making during this lesson. This red lentil soup is inspired by a traditional soup we tried on a trip to Turkey in 1993. We've made so many variations of this over the years, but keep coming back to this simple one. The next recipe, a marinated chickpea salad, is a classic Southern Italian dish showcasing how a Mediterranean dish can transform into so much more than the sum of its parts. Like it looks and sounds really simple, but when all the flavors come together, it's just so wonderful. We'll also learn how to make hummus together, which tastes fantastic when it's freshly made. If you want to use dried chickpeas, be sure to soak them and cook them ahead of time before the class begins. Otherwise, you can use canned. Both variations are super delicious. When teaching this lesson, display samples of dried and canned Mediterranean beans and legumes. Remind students that you don't have to be a vegetarian to eat vegetarian meals. Benefits include increased nutrition, meals naturally lower in calories, affordability, good for the planet, and closer to tradition. And as always, bring your own experiences into the class. Okay, so here's where things pivot a little from some of our sister programs. A Taste of African Heritage, A Taste of Latin American Heritage, and A Children's Taste of African Heritage are all exclusively plant-based. But when developing A Taste of the Mediterranean, um, fermented dairy and seafood are two food groups that have had a significant impact on the cuisine of the region, and we felt it was important to talk about them, how these food groups could be included healthfully, and what are some of the historic, cultural, and nutritional implications for including these meals or including these food groups. So, dairy foods in a traditional Mediterranean diet are eaten often, but in small amounts, and tend to be served in the form of fermented dairy products rather than fluid milk. So, like, this isn't, a glass of milk with dinner kind of a cuisine. We're talking more about fermented products. This lesson will dive into exactly what fermented dairy means and will help students approach dairy through a Mediterranean diet approach of quality over quantity. Two recipes to feature here. The first was a salad prepared by Chef Anna Sortun at a cooking demonstration on a trip to Thessaloniki. While many people think of using cheese in salads, this is a great example of how yogurt can be used. And then another recipe that includes yogurt is a tzatziki sauce, which is a Greek sauce made with yogurt as a base, and it's nice and herby and delicious. And we pair it with these crispy zucchini coins, which we include a recipe for. But I mean, it's a dip, so you can serve it with freshly cut veggies, whole grain pita chips, really just about anything. Um, when it comes to cheese, Quality is more important than quantity. All it takes is a little garnish to liven up a dish. A little goes a long way. And we really dive into this more deeply throughout the chapter. Tell your students where you purchased your dairy products so that they can easily find them too. And use your own experiences in the class to relay the information. The Mediterranean Sea has nourished Mediterranean people for centuries, meaning that seafood has historically been a very important part of the Mediterranean diet. In this lesson, we'll learn about seafood nutrition and sustainability before diving into some easy, delicious recipes for seafood beginners. This lesson is about seafood for beginners, and both recipes feature easily accessible canned seafood. In the Mediterranean, little fish like sardines are an important part of the diet. These sardine patties are so quick and delicious, and they're a great pantry meal to just like keep in your back pocket for days when you haven't had a chance to go to the store. And then the other recipe that we make is a niçoise salad, which is a tuna salad from southern France. It can easily be adapted to whatever ingredients you have on hand. Many variations include things like hard-boiled eggs, French lentils, or radishes. And our affordable version features canned tuna, cherry tomatoes, green beans, and a really simple dressing. When teaching this lesson, remind students that fresh, canned, and frozen seafood are all great options. We talked about in the first lesson, you'll introduce your students to the Healthy Heritage Pledge. And so at this final lesson, let's go back to that, review the pledge, and discuss successes and challenges that they've had following it. And we have more information in the teacher's curriculum about kind of, next steps and carrying these lessons forward throughout the rest of their journey. So, a few quiz questions. Which of these is a whole grain? Bulgur, semolina flour, wheat flour, or pearled barley? Which of these is a whole grain? The answer is bulgur. And in the whole grains chapter, we dive much deeper into like keywords that can help people be able to recognize whole grains at the store easily. Our next question, all of the following dairy products are fermented except Greek yogurt, fluid milk, Parmigiano Reggiano, or labna. And the answer is fluid milk. And again, we'll take a deeper dive into the fermentation process and what that means in the lesson. And our next quiz question, goals of A Taste of the Mediterranean include all of the following except motivating students to restrict calories and track macros, practicing basic cooking skills techniques using Mediterranean ingredients, helping students branch out and explore delicious Mediterranean flavors, embracing olive oil in the kitchen, or encouraging students to eat more plant-based meals and plant-based foods as part of reclaiming cultural traditions. So are any of these not a goal of the program? The first one. So this is not a program about restriction or, bringing a calculator to your meals. We take a more holistic approach to cooking and nutrition. So this portion concludes the 6-lesson curriculum, A Taste of the Mediterranean. One interesting thing that we've done with this program is we've actually introduced a supplemental expansion pack available as a totally separate download for those who are interested. That is about wine in the Mediterranean lifestyle. Obviously, this might not be right for every audience, depending on who you work with, especially the age of people you work with. Um, but we get a lot of questions about wine in the Mediterranean diet. It's a very hot topic. And so we wanted to put something together for people who wanted to explore this topic with their group. So this could be taught like as a standalone wine tasting or celebration, or it could be paired with the full A Taste of the Mediterranean class series, so that students can better learn about wine in the context of the Mediterranean diet. This expansion lesson is completely optional and is not required or included as part of the six-lesson curriculum. Wine and alcohol consumption are not required to follow a healthy Mediterranean diet. But again, because this is such a hot topic, um, and because wine tastings are a wonderful opportunity to savor the pleasures of the table, we want to make this available to those who are interested. And again, if you opt to, access this bonus lesson, remember that wine and alcohol consumption are not required to follow a healthy Mediterranean diet. And, we have a lot more information in the book, reminding students to talk to their healthcare team to see if moderate or occasional alcohol consumption is okay with their unique health situation or family history. This lesson also includes lifestyle information. So take your time with the healthy lifestyle activity. Students really enjoy this one and appreciate the time to check in with themselves about other areas of their life that need nourishment outside of just food. I'm going to share some best practices and teaching tips that we've come across from, our experience with our different cooking and nutrition curricula. Some teachers sign up knowing exactly where they want to teach. They plan to bring the program to their church or to a nearby community center. Others like the comforts and convenience of teaching right out of their home. Many teachers become volunteers without an exact location in mind. Finding a venue isn't hard, especially with these tools and tips on outreach. Oldways program sites have included churches, schools, recreation centers, stores, senior centers, community rooms, multifamily housing units, community clinics, home kitchens, community gardens, farmers markets, and so much more. Many teachers enjoy teaching in the comfort of their own kitchen. Familiarity with the space and the cookware, as well as having personal extras on hand, all add to the ease and enjoyment of a home-cooked class. Um, if you belong to a church or a place of worship, many already have initiatives to help their members improve their health and well-being. Some even have health ministries dedicated to this type of work. So meet with the leaders, call the office, or send an email. You can find this information on their websites. And we also have an outreach email template on our website that can help you introduce yourself in the program. There are many organizations dedicated to supporting the health and wellness of communities. Do a Google search of community centers, wellness centers, chambers of commerce, senior centers, community gardening initiatives, and small businesses within the neighborhood, which you would like to bring a taste of the Mediterranean. Utilize your connections. Do you have a health professional in your family or circle of friends? You could engage them as a co-teacher or ask if their place of work would be open to hosting the series or if they've worked in the community before. Are you on the PTA at your child's school? Ask the principal or director of programs if they'd be open to hosting a parent engagement class held in the after-school hours. And then finally, many health departments have health and nutrition goals and initiatives already in place and are often looking for more programming to offer their communities. Let them know about a taste of the Mediterranean to add to their roster of programs. In order to make the strongest impact, we want to keep our students motivated and coming back, um, connected through the classes and coming back week to week. Before scheduling your class, learn about your audience, their constraints, and their schedule. Is your site accessible by public transportation? For the majority of your students, would a weekday, weeknight, or weekend class be best? Can you or your site provide childcare during class for those who need it? These kinds of questions will help you shape the most inclusive and successful 6-week program for your students. Keep the student handbooks until graduation day. It's easy to attend a first class, receive the materials for all the subsequent classes, and decide not to come back. Past teachers have recognized this and have decided to hold on to their student handbooks until graduation day. Have students return their handbooks at the end of each class after writing down the week's homework assignment. Let students know during the first class that if they come to at least 5 out of the 6 classes, they'll receive the student handbook as a graduation gift to keep. And finally, create an inviting atmosphere. If you love to cook with music, bring in your favorite tunes to cook to. If you have any kitchen decorations, cloths, or tapestries that you don't mind bringing in, showcase those. Market your class as a weekly family meal. Make eating together special in any ways you wish. Teachers need to make sure they know where first aid kits, fire extinguishers, and other safety tools are in case of emergency. Teachers also need to be aware of any food allergies or food restrictions so that students are not unknowingly putting themselves at risk. General food safety practices are important for everyone to learn and practice. As you're washing your hands, cleaning produce, chopping, and cooking, point out these safety and sanitation measures to your students to draw attention to them. Most of these points are self-explanatory, but they are worth reminding your students. Also, hot behind and knife behind are important to verbally let people know when you're behind them with a hot pan or dish or a knife to avoid a dangerous collision. To make sure that A Taste of the Mediterranean helps teachers and students make lasting changes, it's important that we measure the program's impacts through confidential student surveys and, where possible, physical health measurements. The entrance and exit surveys give us a before and after snapshot of how the program has impacted students' daily cooking and eating habits. They also give us critical feedback about the program. For efficiency and consistency, distribute the student entrance and exit surveys at the end of lessons 1 and 6 respectively. If a new student comes in on the second week of class, make sure that he or she fills out the entrance survey at that time. If any students miss the last class, request a digital copy of the exit survey from our team and email missing students a copy to fill out and return. A missing entrance or exit survey from a student gives an incomplete picture. We appreciate your help in gathering this important data. The results and feedback we receive will continue to help us make the program as effective as it can be. Graduation day is a time for reflection, celebration, and community, and is the perfect place to set intentions for how students plan to carry these healthy habits forward and throughout the community. In many class series, the final class is a potluck, where each student is invited to prepare a dish from the handbook or a recipe of their own using ingredients covered in class. You can also use the final class to reflect on student takeaways. Have students share the most useful and meaningful thing that they will take away from this series. Did they discover a new food? Are they inspired to cook more often? If so, what barriers were broken down for them? Another way to end the class is with goal setting. One teacher asked each of her students to bring one healthy lifestyle goal to the last class to share with the group. Sharing a goal out loud empowers individuals with greater responsibility and resolve. Finally, the last class is a great opportunity to carry the torch. Ask your students how they would like to carry on this program to achieve their goals for healthy eating and living. Would they enjoy getting together for monthly potlucks after graduation? Do they want to start an email list together or a meetup group? Do they want to become instructors themselves? Or would they like to host a social event, like a health fair or block party based on heritage foods in their communities? Once you know what your group would like to do going forward, you'll be able to organize future gatherings or appoint a volunteer group leader to keep gatherings going. The most common response we hear from students on graduation day is that they wish the classes didn't have to end. 6 weeks goes by quickly, and for many, a taste of the Mediterranean classes mark the beginning of a new journey and approach to healthy eating and living. As with any journey, students benefit even more with continued support. In addition to staying connected through Oldways social media outlets, here are a few other ideas for working with your students and communities in the long run. You can host potlucks with graduates and their families. You can appoint group leaders to host various outings. You can encourage students to become leaders in their own community. Um, you can teach the class again. There is no limit on how many classes a teacher can teach throughout the year. So if you taught your first series in your home kitchen, consider teaching the class again in a public community space. You can also host single day events in your community using key messages and components of the program to do short presentations or cooking demos at places like your kid's school, your local place of worship, your farmer's market, or your community center. And there's, again, lots of opportunities to create long-term change that we discussed on the last slide. Sometimes our teachers get contacted by the media because local newspapers and news outlets want to run a story on the classes. If this happens to you, please let us know. And here's the protocol. Respond ASAP and thank them for getting in touch. Let them know that you're happy to speak with them. You can email Oldways at media@oldwayspt.org and send us details of the media request, like the journalist, the outlet, what they want to write about, etc. We'll get back to you and let you know how to proceed. And we'll also share talking points for you so that you feel confident because we're here with you every step of the way. And finally, I just want to share a few fun swaps to Mediterraneanize common meals. So these substitutions capture the spirit of what we're trying to do with a taste of the Mediterranean. We're not trying to change everything on the plate, but help participants nudge themselves a little bit closer to a traditional Mediterranean diet and to practice these habits so that they become a lifestyle. It's going from spaghetti and meatballs to whole wheat pasta puttanesca, so swapping to a whole wheat pasta shape. Instead of a meaty sauce, we've got this kind of olive and walnut sauce. So similar type of dish, but with a more traditional and nutritious spin. For people who aren't ready to give up red meat and still want to include it, well, we're going to use the meat as a garnish. We're going to thread the meat with vegetables and make these shish kebabs and serve it with a whole grain and nut pilaf. Instead of just basic eggs and toast, here we have a vegetable frittata. Our toast we swapped to whole wheat and we spread it with avocado instead of butter. Avocado has heart healthy monounsaturated fats, which is a similar type of fat as an olive oil. And then we've also added some fruit here. For a lunchtime meal, instead of a deli meat sandwich with potato chips, we have a whole grain pita pocket, or you could use whole grain bread, spread with hummus, filled with lots of different veggies and nuts. And we're serving ours with cut veggies and cut fruit with hummus on the side. And for a little appetizer platter, instead of just like basic cheese and crackers, we have more of an antipasto platter. We've got some roasted veggies, got some dates stuffed with cheese and nuts. And then we have a romesco sauce. There's so many great vegetable-based sauces in the Mediterranean, served with some whole grain crackers. So just some ideas to spark conversation. But that's all we've got for you today. Thank you for your attention. If you have further questions about teaching a taste of the Mediterranean, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team. You can write to classes@oldwayspd.org or find more info on our website. So, with that, thank you for your time and good luck teaching your class series.